All right, everyone, thank you for joining us today. We're going to begin our conversation. As I mentioned before, if you haven't already, please put your full name in the chat. That's one of the ways that we're able to confirm your attendance. All right, today we're going to talk about or continue our conversation about social emotional learning for ELLs and also for us, for teachers. We're continuing our conversation. If you joined us last week, we had some guest speakers who were sharing a lot of great resources, and we're going to give you a few more this week. I'm Denise, I'm one of the resource specialists at the Long Island RBERN, and my colleague Pat Parpunis is also here with me.
Good afternoon, everyone.
If you haven't had a chance already, you can visit our website. It's esboces.org/LIRBERN. And this is a great place to find the link to go to our catalog in My Learning Plan. So if you're looking for more professional development, and we have a lot of opportunities coming for you between now and the end of June, you can go to our website and use the link, and it'll bring you right to our My Learning Plan catalog. All right, just a reminder, please keep your microphone on mute. This way we don't get too much feedback from one another, so just mute your microphone if you can. We are all still available for you, so here is our contact information. You can email any of the resource specialists with any questions that you have, and we'll be able to get back to you as soon as we can. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube video yet, or our YouTube channel yet, please do so. You can use the bit.ly, which Pat will put in the chat for you, or you can search it when you go onto YouTube. You can put Long Island RBERN there and it'll come right up. And all of our segments from our Tune In Tuesdays and Follow Up Fridays, all of the special events that we have during the week, they are all those videos are posted to our YouTube channel. So if you missed last week's presentations, on which we're continuing the conversation this week, if you missed those presentations on social emotional learning, you can go to our YouTube channel and find those videos there. All right, so here's our agenda for this afternoon, and thank you for joining us. Again, if you are just coming in, I know as we go, participants will be admitted into our discussion. Just make sure you put your full name in the chat. That's one of the ways that we can confirm your attendance. And at the end of the presentation, we will show you how to complete the evaluation. That's the second part of confirming your attendance. We also have Victoria Arthur here. She's a social worker at Eastern Suffolk BOCES. She's going to be sharing some social emotional learning activities for students and also for teachers. So in a moment, she will share those with us. And any questions that you have for Victoria while she is presenting, you can put in the chat, and we'll be sure to get as many responses as we can for you. Here are the essential questions that we'll be responding to in today's presentation. So what is social and emotional learning, right? We've been using SEL. Why does it matter? How does SEL promote success in school and life? What resources and tools are available for teachers and to teachers for SEL? And when you join us on Friday, so some of you may be joining us it's typically Follow Up Friday, but this week it'll be on Thursday. We're going to have Panorama Education share ways that you can measure and monitor your students' social emotional learning. And so at the end of the presentation, we'll remind you that if you are interested for a follow-up conversation and learning how to monitor and measure students' social emotional learning, you can join us this week on Thursday. All right, so now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Victoria will take over. As I mentioned, Victoria Arthur is a social worker at Eastern Suffolk BOCES, and she's going to share with us some of the different resources that she really likes and that can be used with all of our students, and then also for teachers as well. So I think I stopped sharing my screen, right?
Yes.
Are you, Victoria, able to share your screen when you're ready?
Yes. So hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. And thank you for giving me an excuse to put on a real outfit, at least from here out. So thank you for that. And again, this is just, I know you guys have been doing a lot of social emotional learning stuff already, so I will touch upon what it is, why it's important, but the real meat and potatoes of today will be mostly just some resources that I've even come across most recently that I found to be really helpful, and also lay down groundwork for creativity, as teachers are very good with. So without further ado, and don't mind all the open tabs, they will be used. I also imagine that's kind of what the inside of my head looks like these days. All right. So this is just a quote that I feel like it's something I grew up with, and of course at the time I didn't want to hear it because it was coming from my dad and I was a kid and didn't care. But I do think it's really very relevant to what we're going over with social emotional learning. Obviously everyone here is here because you're a stakeholder in academia. So while there are some answers that can be looked up in the back, you're also teaching kids how to be human beings. And there's not exactly a rule book for that, as much as you would like for that to be. So I thought that was always a really nice quote for this topic in particular. So this is just, not to do a whole Psych 101 lesson, but this is a model that I think is really important for anyone in the education system. It's a Rothenbrenner's ecological systems theory, and the reason I like it so much is because it looks at children and everyone involved in the picture as part of multiple systems. So there's a lot of layers to everyone we come across, and it looks at them, how they interact with each of those circles. So you can see in the middle, it's individuals and peers. So that's family members, that's friends, that's teachers. And it works its way out into the bigger picture, the micro, meso, and macro levels of the world we live in. And I think this model is really important for what we'll be talking about today. And I'll kind of refer back to this type of model throughout the presentation. So I'm going to pull up a quick video that I think does a really good job of explaining and painting a picture of why social emotional learning is important. What?
Well, I want to start with a story. I want to introduce you to Josh. He is 8 years old. He's a third grader. We all know Josh. Last night, his parents had a conflict. They were yelling and shouting. Voices were raised. Josh had a very hard time getting to sleep. He had an even harder time waking up because of all that commotion. So to get him up, his mom yelled at him again, "Josh, get up, we're late." So Josh got out of bed, got dressed, ran. He got breakfast made for himself and his sister, and he ran out the door to catch the bus. He's running and running. The bus is right there. He catches up to the bus. The bus almost leaves, makes it on board. The bus driver says, "Josh, sit down. Let's go. We're almost late. We got to go. Come on." Made the bus, gets to school. He realizes that he maybe forgot his cold lunch, so he takes some time on the yard to dig through his backpack and notice if he has his cold lunch or not. He had it, so that was good. But he wasted some time, got through the front door, and the front desk said, "Josh, you're tardy. Get to class. Let's go." So Josh runs down the hall, opens the door, and the teacher says, "All right, welcome to class, Josh. Do you have that homework from last night?" Josh completely forgot about the homework with all the commotion going on at his house. Josh, at this, kind of had a tantrum. He threw his backpack against the wall, and he screamed, "Ah!" The teacher said, "Young man, that is not how we enter the classroom. I'm going to march you down to the principal's office right now." Sits Josh down at the principal's office, and the teacher says, "I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know what's wrong. He went from 0 to 10 in 5 seconds flat." The principal looked at Josh and said, "What's wrong with you?" There's two things with this that I want to kind of reevaluate. The first thing is, it's not what's wrong with Josh. It is what has happened to Josh. And the second thing is, Josh didn't come from 0 to 10. He was at an 8 when he walked in the front door, right? So we're going to shift our mindset from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. In that story, how many adults along the way were living in the "what's wrong with you" mindset? the mom, the bus driver, the front desk. How much easier could Josh's morning have been if instead they were operating under the what happened to you mindset? Just think about that.
So I'm going to switch back over. So I just thought that was like a really nice kind of soundbite to kind of bring home the idea of why this is so important. We've all experienced mornings like that personally. We've all seen our kids come in with an off morning, and we see that one snapshot. But it's really important to continue to think about those layers, those circles of involvement in the kid's life and ours. You know, we've all come in, I call them coffee spill mornings. You're a hot mess. You might have spilled your coffee on your clothes. You don't have time to change. You're trying to hide the stain. You're running late. There's a million and one things that could happen before you walk in the door. And that's part of your story. So what is social emotional learning? Again, I know you guys have been over this recently, so I won't get too much into it. Developing self-awareness, self-control, interpersonal skills that are vital for school, work, and life. So the breakdown of competencies, we have self-awareness, that's identifying emotions, accurate self-perception, self-confidence, self-efficacy. We have self-awareness, that's learning perspective, learning empathy, appreciating diversity, respect for yourself and for others. You've got decision-making, so identifying appropriate decisions, identifying how to approach problems and think critically about situations, reflect, understanding ethics as well. We have self-management, so that's the impulse control. That's definitely a big one for our kids. Stress management, being able to self-discipline, not just accepting discipline, but understanding your role in that. Goal setting, organizing, and then relationships. That's communication, our social engagement, relationship building, and teamwork. So that's the basic breakdown with a lot of buzzwords that we know really well, but not necessarily buzzwords that kids really want to hear. So it's our job to kind of hide those lessons discreetly. So again, I really like this image because I think it does kind of mimic the Bronfenbrenner model of circles of influence. So it's all connected. There's not just one piece that presents itself. It's all part of this layer of who we are and who our kids are. So I think it's always really important to revert back to all these layers of our kids and how it affects them. I did borrow this from the Michelle Obama documentary I watched recently, and this whole thing about your stats versus your story. And I think it connects really well to the social emotional piece. An example of our stats would be, how well did you do on a test? How well did you do in a sporting event? Whereas your story is, what are your parents like? What's your home life like? And I think that's another way to kind of revert back to that, what happened versus what's wrong with you. So why is it important? Just take a second and think about your own educational experiences. What stood out to you when you were growing up about your education? Was it that calculus class that you took, or was it the teacher that taught the calculus class? So we are part of that. We are part of the educational experience for our kids. No matter what your role is in that building, you are part of it. And we know that if you're happy in a place, you're going to perform better. That's academic success, job readiness, improved relationships, overall well-being and emotional intelligence. Kids spend most of their days in school, and we're all part of that. And you're definitely, you're more willing to engage in a setting when you feel connected to it in some positive way. So that's always important too. So who is involved? Teachers, teachers' assistants, individual aides, admin, social workers and guidance counselors, OT, nurses, students, families, absolutely everyone that is sets foot in a building or is involved in a building is a stakeholder. So it's not just on the teachers, not just on the principals, not just on the social workers to carry this out. It is a team effort. And we all know that consistency is very important in yielding success for kids. So we're obviously in a very strange time right now, which is why these kind of brain trust conversations are even more important than they usually are. So these are just a few things that I know I've personally seen, I know my colleagues have seen as well in terms of remote education and that switch and what it's been like. So first of all, you don't have the physical space of your classroom. You don't have your posters. You don't have their cubbies. You don't have their folders. All those tangible things that make a classroom are not there. And that's a huge adjustment. You spend so much time making that space comfortable and safe and engaging for yourself, for your staff, for your kids. And that's not there. And that happened very quickly. So that's a huge thing that we're dealing with right now. The interactions, that back and forth of give and take of learning, of conversing, of socializing, that's not there. And for staff too, one of the beautiful things about working in a school is the sense of community. It's a little community there for that block of your day, and that's significant. The separation of work from home, that's a big one. I get dressed to go to my living room for work every day. That's not a separation. So that's really significant. And we're always taught, compartmentalize and make sure you don't bring your work home. But as teachers and educators, I know we all do. So that's missing too. So we are forced to also deal with not having that distinction of our lives, of our circles of influence. Those circles that I've talked about earlier in the presentation, those are blurred lines now. There's no concrete separation, and that's a big deal. And with that comes a new kind of fatigue. We're not necessarily fatigued right now because we're running around like headless chickens dealing with childcare and work and home. We're fatigued because there's that big outer circle, the community is dealing with something big right now, and we were forced to adjust. And everyone we interact with is dealing with that in their own way, but they're dealing with it nonetheless. And that with it brings a new sense of fatigue. The ambiguous timeline is another significant aspect. Media exposure, the news, the memes, you name it, COVID's everywhere. Whether it's funny or entertaining or something more serious, it is something we're seeing, it's something our families are seeing, and it's something our kids are seeing. And it's difficult to get away from. We have access to all these things at our fingertips. And we're managing something different. Typically you're managing classroom behaviors, but that's no longer what we're managing. We're managing the stress of all these things up here. And it's new, and no one was ready for it. So what we're seeing now, again, and it's important to acknowledge that a lot of these things, a lot of these bullet points were already issues for the families we serve. Lack of basic resources, hardships across the board, across major domains, difficulty with new mental health issues. Maybe this has brought on anxiety, depression, or maybe people already had pre-existing conditions and they're being exacerbated by this horrible situation. And new responsibilities, the financial hardships, people are out of work, and that creates a huge chain reaction in our communities. And a lot of our students are dealing with similar stressors to their families. They're feeling these effects, the access to those resources, the trickle-down effects of the medical, financial, and emotional hardships. Maybe some students are taking on some new responsibilities because of that trickle-down effect. Lack of socialization. They don't, a big part of a kid's socialization is who they attend school with. That's a huge part of their day. And limited access to direct educational emotional supports. So yes, while we do have remote learning, not every child has the luxury of access to it. And that's something that we have to unfortunately be aware of. And again, all this is happening with this new COVID fatigue that we're experiencing. So these are all the smaller circles in the bigger circle of there's this global pandemic that we are all experiencing in our own way. Again, not to do a huge psych lesson, but this is something that I've been kind of reverting back to a lot. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. So typically we strive for up here. This is This means that everything down here is established and we are building on it, and we are at the top, loving life and striving for morality and creativity, and we're problem solving critically, and we are just living it up. Right now, we are seeing not only in ourselves but also in our communities that we are struggling with being down here. So what does that mean? It means that being a teacher and being a student are even more difficult than they were before. So some things we're anticipating that we will witness in ourselves and our students when things do return to normal. It's going to be hard to engage in the content. There's going to be that residual fatigue, and it's not like riding a bike where you can just easily get back in. It's hard to return to the educational demands after not really being engaged in it for a long time. And it has been a long time, and it will be a long time. Social regression. So these kids, whether they've been able to interact with their peers through a screen or not, it's not the same. That interaction, that back and forth has been lacking. So it's possible that we will witness some social regression in our students as well.
Hey everyone, I hope everybody.
That fatigue, again, it's okay. The residual fatigue, again, because of all these things, while we physically haven't been moving around as much, we are emotionally exhausted, and that is more powerful than any sort of physical fatigue. Inattentiveness, again, that difficulty engaging and being a full-time student again. We might see some presentation of new mental health symptoms, exacerbation of the existing mental health symptoms. And it's possible we may see some cases of PTSD. This is traumatic. And there are some kids that will struggle with resiliency in this. And that's where we come in. And it's not to say we're not dealing with it either, because I'm assuming that a lot of these things sound familiar, not just for our kids, but for ourselves as well. And that's really important to acknowledge that we are in this with them as well. So all that being said, what do we do about it? Because that's why you're here. So I'm going to run through these really quickly, but then in the next few slides, I'm going to go in depth more of some examples. So phone apps. If you do have children and families that have access to devices, phone apps are a great resource. There's a lot of free ones out there. They're easy. It's very much meeting the kids where they're at. Same with the memes and hashtags. Incorporating them into your lessons is a really great way to just kind of relate to them. There's free meme generator apps. You could always make an activity creating a meme. Be Kind to Your Mind is also a big mental health campaign where it's just think of ways that you can be good to your brain. We're talking a lot about being good to our bodies, but let's talk about what's up here. Check-ins. That's a great way to just, what's going on? Group pulse. Give me one word that describes how you're feeling right now. That's a very easy way to introduce and get your class kind of engaging. And again, that positive reframing, not what's wrong with you, what happened to you, ask how they're doing as opposed to what they're doing. Ask how they're doing before you ask if they completed the assignment or not, things like that. And that brings it back to that stats versus story model. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is not necessarily just the meditation aspect. There's a lot of ways to introduce mindfulness that are more digestible for even younger kids. You can do mindfulness activities where they're eating a piece of candy and you talk about the sensory experience, and it's all about just kind of grounding yourself and being present. So that's a very common misconception that I know I recently fell into that trap as well. Journal prompts, another free, easy way to introduce SEL. And of course, connection to mental health resources, hotlines, mental health providers, and opportunities to interact remotely with their peers and with their staff. So again, this stuff is more important than ever. It always was important. But while we are here kind of dealing with this crisis and working remotely, this is a good way to kind of subtly start incorporating it so that when we are able to engage normally again in the physical setting of a building, it's kind of just part of the classroom. And it's a really great time to introduce it. So I'm going to run through a few examples here. So bear with me as I do some screen switching. So I'll start with these. So these are all free apps, and they're highlighted as really engaging for kids. That's not to say they're not also good for adults, but these are specifically mentioned as very user-friendly for kids. So I'm going to just switch over. So Super Better is the first one I'm going to show you. I'm a big fan of it because it was actually designed by video game experts. So there's definitely elements that are very appealing to kids. And it just starts off with you pick one. So again, it even gives kids the choice of what can I do as opposed to just telling them what to do. So let's say we did make your hands into fists, raise them over your head high for 5 seconds. I did it. And then it gives you even just a little blurb. I won't play the video, but it does a little explanation. And it also offers a transcript that they can go over as well if you're doing it with, if the family's doing it or you're doing it with them, or they can do it independently. So it does a brief example of, okay, why the heck did I do that? Because kids always want to know why. So again, Super Better is one of my favorites, and it's great for all ages. The next one I'm going to look at is Headspace. So Headspace is a big one, and it's very user-friendly. So I'm just going to go to the home page here. And they are doing free trials right now. So they do a breakdown of you can do basics, introductions to mindfulness. Maybe my screen will cooperate. Let's see. You can do group exercises. They talk about reframing. There's different packs. So a pack means that you can do one after the other and they all play off each other. So they're kind of like they're sequential. You can do individual ones, and they all have very specific themes. So they've got minis, and all the ones that are highlighted are the ones that are available for free right now. And they also offer for different ages. So they have kid ones. Whoops. Pretty much every need you could think of, they have pre-sleep, they have post-sleep, they've got happiness, they've got work, they've got one specific for students, they've got them for kids. They also have animations, which are really cute. See if I can, yeah. So the animations page is great because it just kind of, especially for younger kids, it just makes it a little bit more appealing. So I'm a big advocate of Headspace, and it's very user-friendly. It's very easy to navigate, and again, it is free. And it's my understanding, based on my research, that these are all also offered in multiple languages. So that's a big one too. And I'm gonna go over
Victoria,
next.
I was just going to ask you, because in the chat we had some questions about if you knew if the websites were available. And some of them I haven't tested it out, but if you download the Google Translate extension, you can kind of see before you share it with your students, see if it works with that website.
Yes, as far as I'm aware, I looked up most of them and they are offered in multiple languages. And I will have this slide after this will actually have resources that are specific for Spanish speaking. So again, journal prompts, a lot of teachers start with do nows, things like that. A journal prompt is a really user-friendly way to just get them thinking and writing about things that are more connected to social emotional learning. Something as simple as, what are you good at? What's something that is a unique quality about you that makes you special? And again, that can be adjusted to be any language, and it's just a way to get them thinking. Next, we have art projects. Where are you? Here we go. So there's a lot of websites like this one. I really just typed in free ways to incorporate social emotional learning. Obviously, some of these are more conducive to the physical classroom setting. But one of the things that I really like on this one is perspective taking read aloud. So anytime they're reading a story, you could offer a prompt where you offer, okay, what was this character thinking? What would it be like if you were this character? That's teaching empathy. That's teaching compassion. So there's a lot of websites like this that are very user friendly, offered in multiple languages, and they're free. And they really can help you get those ideas going. And again, I know this will be sent to you guys, so all this will be available to you. So there are apps that are offered in Spanish besides the ones that I showed you on the other page. This is specific to Spanish-speaking families. And here these are all links to mindfulness prompts and activities that are only in Spanish. Another activity I really liked is, as an example, is this COVID time capsule. They offer printable versions online. So this is an example of the one in Spanish. And this is a great way to just get the kids doing an activity, thinking about themselves, thinking about their families during this time. And this website also includes other time capsules in Spanish and English. And it includes ones for kids. And it also includes them for adults. And they also have free bonus pages. And these are all printable. And they also have versions that are available for typing, which is great because a lot of people don't have access to printers, myself included. And last but not least, so Therapist Aid, I won't maximize this page because I'm going to go to the next tab. It has the word therapist in it, but it is definitely not solely for therapists at all. I think it's a fantastic educational tool as well. And one of the things I really like about it is you can filter it to exactly your needs. So it's based on, you start with the age group you want to engage with. You can filter by topic. There's really, go away. There's guides, there's videos, there's articles, there's worksheets. It's all free. And what's great about Therapist Aid is that you can customize your own worksheets if you want. So you say you have an idea and you want to make it more personal to your work, you can. And you can also upload Spanish versions as well. I think most of the sheets I've come across, they have an option to look up a Spanish version of the worksheet. So that's a great tool as well. And I'm a huge fan of that. I've been, frazzled and had a long day at work and had no time to prepare for a group or a session. And I've gone on Therapist Aid, Googled exactly what I wanted, and been able to use it as a foundation for whatever I was doing. So again, it's really great for quick and easy, and very importantly, free. And it offers a lot for education and for social emotional learning as well. Just some quick tips, but you guys are really the experts on engaging with your students. It's always helpful to clarify, what did you mean by that? That kind of falls under the what happened as opposed to what's wrong. The what's wrong kind of backs them into a corner and kind of creates like a shaming climate. That's not good for anybody. And it peels back the layers. Modeling, again, you guys know this, you're role models to the kids. Everything you do is taken in and absorbed. So it's always helpful to model the empathy and listening and clarifying. Really put yourself in their shoes the best way you can. They notice, kids are sponges. They notice everything, the good and the bad and everything in between. I know positivity sounds obvious, but it could be something as simple as that, as the positive reframing. And that's what this is, the what's wrong versus what happened. A simple positive adjustment like that can really make a significant difference in the function of your classroom. I think joining them is really helpful. Joining them in the journal prompts, joining them in an activity. I think that also falls under the modeling, but it also kind of gives them permission to maybe be a little bit more vulnerable than they're comfortable. When you're rolling out new things, it's always kind of helpful to do it with them. The example I always think of is when I was growing up and doing sports, it always meant a lot to me when the coaches would try and do the drills that they were barking at us to do. So again, it's vulnerability can kind of be perceived through these things, but being empathetic, being compassionate, it's not vulnerability, it's really strength. And that's what we want to really enforce to our kids. So we're doing a lot of talk about our students, but we all need a little self-care too. So it's really important to, before you're rolling out any of these things, to kind of do that check-in with yourself. Am I doing this? Am I feeling self-aware? Am I feeling aware of others? Am I empathizing as best as I can? Because it's, you know, you can't drain the battery if it's not charged already. So just make sure that you are doing what you can to tend to yourself. We're all going through a crisis right now, and that's not to be taken lightly. And the work that we do is important and draining on a perfect day. So right now we're really kind of gritting through it. So it's imperative that we are taking care of ourselves. And that's when programs like the Employee Assistance Program are important. It provides support to employees, students, and their families in an effort to maximize overall wellness. And that really falls under the whole social emotional learning thing. It's learning improves when we help people develop skills, manage life tasks, form relationships. This is a video right here that the EAP of Eastern Suffolk BOCES put out. And it actually specifically talks about how this virus is impacting educational stakeholders and offers tips and resources for them as well. And the contact info is right down here. And most importantly, I hope everyone's healthy and hopefully you got something out of this. And that's it.
Thank you, Victoria. Yeah, thank you for all of the great resources. Many of the in the chat, I'm just looking through to see if there were any other questions. Someone
Yeah, let me know.
Back one slide. Teresa, if you want to come off mute and just ask which slide was it, the EAP information?
Yes, exactly. The resources that was provided for educators, please.
Sure.
Thank you. That one again.
I gotcha. Just give me one sec.
And thank you.
What I'll do is I'll catch the email and the phone number, and I'll put it in the chat for all of us too. So Victoria is showing you the EAP contact information for Eastern Suffolk BOCES. So it's Dr. Michael Miles at esboces.org. I'll put that in there. And the phone number is 631, right?
289-0480.
Okay. And that's for Eastern Suffolk BOCES employees and families, and also Western Suffolk BOCES. And in a moment, I will display the contact information for the Nassau Suffolk EAP program as well. So, and if you have any other questions for Victoria, Victoria, is it all right if I put your email address in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it the Arthur?
Yes, ARTHUR.
Yep, at esboces.org. And Victoria will send me her presentation and we will upload it to our website as a PDF so that you can go back and look at some of those resources. And I tried to capture most of the apps and websites that you were showing us, and I put them in the chat as well. So participants may have been able to snag that. Did you want to show us anything else, or do you want me, I can display my screen and show us the contact information for Nassau?
No, I'm all set unless there's other questions that can be addressed or need to go back to on the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, yeah, no, everyone, yeah. I don't see, not many questions. I think we answered most of the questions already. But everyone is just saying thank you to you, and also, you know, needing these resources for particular groups of students, because we're seeing that, you know, maybe not every one of our students, not every one of our students are affected in the same way. And so maybe you do see that you want to do some more explicit instruction and activities with one group of students. So so that's great to see as well. Let me
Yeah.
share the screen here.
Again, what I love about these things is, like, you know, they're kind of like a baseline for creating social emotional learning. So I think teachers are like the most creative minds out there, and these are all just things that can kind of get those juices flowing, with making them more explicit to the populations that you work with.
Yeah, definitely. And I like what you said earlier. Earlier, Victoria had mentioned that, you know, we kind of sneak in these SEL activities, so that it's not like, hey, we're going to be talking about empathy today, but we just kind of sneak it into our content. And that might get students to be a little bit more engaged in some of those activities. But there may be, like you were just saying, there may be a group of students where you have to do something a little bit more explicit, and that's fine as well. And I think the unique situation of being thrown into this remote learning environment is that now we kind of have this established this communication, whether using Zoom or Google Classroom. It doesn't necessarily have to stop on June, you know, the end of the school year, June 26th or whatever that might be for you. You know, you have that contact information. So maybe talking with your department about continuing some sort of instruction, you know, at your own pace throughout the summer, or checking in with students, because we don't know how long this is going to last. And essentially, I mean, we've really been out of school by September. It'll be for like 5 months straight. So, you know, still checking in with our students is important. I'm displaying, I think you can all see it, the supervisor of the Nassau EAP program is Gloria Grosso, and this is her contact information. So if you're from that school, a Nassau school district, you can contact them. All right. There are also some other resources available through the NICED websites, and let me see here. Pat, if you don't mind, can you put the links in the chat for us? So different tools for that continuity of learning and your distance learning plans, and also including social emotional support. So there's some resources. I don't know if you can see my arrow, but just pointing at that that screenshot, you can see there are some resources, additional resources to what we've shared over the past few weeks and today. In that document on that webpage, and then also on the Student Support Services website, there are also some other SEL resources as well. So you can, you know, if there's something specific you're looking for, or something new you're looking for, you know, kind of check it out. And I think Victoria said perfectly before that, you know, we're kind of doing this at our own pace, and not that we have to integrate an SEL activity every single day, every single lesson. But kind of integrating it as your students need it, and as it kind of comes up. And then, of course, gathering some different action plans from the CRS framework. And there are also some other documents and videos. If you use the link at the bottom, which Pat will, when she gets a moment, will put in the chat as well. So that's another NICED social emotional learning modules that you can take a look at as well. So there are a lot of resources, and it can be overwhelming, just like everything else for us. But if you find something you like, you can, you know, try it out. If you don't like it, then stop using it. You know, there's no commitment there. But then sharing activities with your colleagues is important too, because if you have already vetted it, you know, you can share it with someone else, and maybe even want to get your team together and say, you know what, how about we each look for an activity and we integrate one per week. So then you're only looking for a few, because it can become overwhelming and put us right back into that, you know, that situation where our batteries aren't charged. Unless there are any other questions, we've kind of concluded, we'll conclude for today. I just want to remind you, if you joined us late, please put your full name. So not your email address or anything else, your full name in the chat. That's one part of us being able to confirm your attendance. The other part is you completing the evaluation on My Learning Plan. So when you log back into My Learning Plan, you'll click on Your Learning Plan. And next to today's activity, so it should say Tune In Tuesday, Remote Learning, Remote Resources for Social Emotional Learning, something along those lines. Look for the title of today's activity and you'll click Manage. And then once you get to Manage, you'll scroll, it'll bring you to another page and you'll scroll down and you'll find these different actions and you'll click the Session Workshop Evaluation. Once that's complete, we will see that you completed an evaluation. We will not see your evaluation. We'll see that you completed an evaluation, and as long as we also have your name in the chat, we'll be able to confirm your attendance with those 2 items. So if you have a few minutes after today's session, please complete that evaluation. It helps us to you know, drive our instruction forward and our research and see what are the topics you're looking for. So that's really important to us. Thank you. And if you are available, we usually have a follow-up conversation on Friday. This week we're doing it on Thursday because we know some districts have will have a well-needed day off on this Friday. So we are having our follow-up Friday on Thursday. That's this Thursday, 21st at 12. And we discussed earlier that if we are putting out all of these activities, we want to make sure that they're having an effect on our students' social emotional learning and growth. So Panorama Education will be with us. They're going to talk about different ways that you can measure your students' growth and then plan moving forward in the areas that they may need or the competencies that they need support in. And we also have some teachers, mindfulness teachers, ELL teachers, a guidance counselor from Long Beach School District who will be joining us on Thursday to talk more about how they use some of the resources that Victoria presented and that our presenters shared with us last week and others they've come across. So if you are available, we'd love for you to join us. And if you're not available, you can check back sometime next week on our YouTube channel and we will have those clips for you. So that's all I have for you today. I think we like to kind of keep it not too overwhelming and make sure that you each have some time to digest everything that we shared with you today. And I want to thank you, Victoria, for taking time away from, you know, in between your students, working with your students today to join us and to share your resources. So we thank you.
Thanks for having me. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to email me and I'll do what I can to help out.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Victoria. All right. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon and we hope to see you Thursday. All right. Bye, everyone.